How much money do I need when I want to start with native advertising traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain Yahoo Gemini? In this video, we will take a detailed look about the costs with native advertising, what you can expect and what not, and how much you have to pay in the end of the day for real when you want to try native advertising. Hi everyone, my name is Marcel Sattler. I'm the founder of Purple Black, a native advertising only agency. So what we are doing on a daily basis is we run profitable campaigns for our clients on traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini and many more. And the very common question is, hey, how much does native advertising cost? How much money do I need when I want to start? Is it possible to try just with a few $100 or do I need, I don't know, an arm and a leg to run native ads? And first of all, it's important to understand that native advertising is working completely different than every other traffic source out there, especially if you compare it with social ads like Facebook, TikTok, etc. Many of you guys are familiar with Facebook ads, therefore I will take this example to give you a real life sample. So first of all, what does Facebook do? When you start a new Facebook campaign or a new account completely from scratch, normally you have to gather some data, but Facebook honors you for starting with Facebook ads. So they're giving you a good CPA, a good cost per lead, a good cost per acquisition. In a nutshell, when you start with Facebook advertising, just spend a few bucks a day, you will pay just a few bucks also for a CPA. You will receive a very low CPA from Facebook. So when you start with Facebook, you have a low CPA and also a low cost per acquisition. But when you see, hey, I'm very glad to see that it's working. Facebook ads is working, digital marketing for me is working. Therefore, what's the next step? Normally, you want to scale up. So you want to spend more budget. And while you're spending more budget, the CPA normally also went a little bit up. So you spend more budget, but in this case, for example, it's the budget, and the CPA also goes up a little bit, but not so much, until there is a point where you spend bigger amounts. So especially when you spend something between 8,000 and 10,000 K per day, by the way, sometimes also a little bit less, but especially then you will see that the CPA is exploding and go up, sorry for my bad, drawing, but I think you get the point. It's exploding and then you see the CPAs also exploding. So on the beginning, Facebook gives you very low amounts of CPA costs, but when you try to invest more, when you spend more on the platform, the CPA will explode. It will explode when you spend $200 a day or something like that. And maybe not when you spend 2 or 3K per day, but normally when you spend up to 5K per day, the CPA will also go straight up. And in most cases, that's not profitable anymore. And that's the case where most businesses begin to struggle because they set up all their infrastructure. They thought in the beginning, okay, glad to hear that Facebook is giving us low CPAs and this way will continue the next 3 or 5 years. But unfortunately, when they came to a point where scaling breaks down, where through the scaling process, the CPA is exploding, the whole business normally is struggling because that happens normally to companies which are relatively new and which are still a little bit fragile. So that's not a legit business yet because they're not, I don't know, 2 decades in business. Normally that's new companies who are reinvesting their profits, their margins, and when there are some issues, they are beginning to struggling. And that's a very crucial point to know what's happening. And by the way, also to know how to fix this issue. All right, now we know how Facebook in general, in a nutshell, of course, very black and white, is working. But let's switch to native. And native advertising works completely different. Unfortunately, native has a very high barrier to start because you have to bring a lot of money when you will start with native advertising. But let's take a look into the details. So first of all, you have to understand that you will start with native with more money because there is a setup which you need. On Facebook, for example, you're in e-commerce. You have a store, you have a Shopify store, and then you just run traffic to your Shopify store. And the Facebook algorithm is still very smart, so you will see some conversions. On native, that's normally not possible. So what you need on native is you need another funnel. You need a funnel with completely different ads, and you need a funnel with advertorials. By the way, if you don't know what's an advertorial, check out my other videos here on YouTube about native advertising. But just in a nutshell, an advertorial is a landing page which looks like an editorial, but of course it's not an editorial text, it's a legit copywriting text with, at the end of the bottom, the goal is to purchase the product. But let's come back to the sample. So you need in the beginning more money because you have to hire an agency like we are, because it's not recommended to try it by your own. But a little bit more about that later. So you have a start budget, which is already a minus before you start. And then the bad news is when you start with native, you have very high costs and also very high CPAs. So native, it's not possible to just start with $20, with $30. You need, for example, when you're running a campaign, you have to separate them by device type. I give you a sample. Let's say you want to start a campaign in the US and you want to reach almost every device. Then you normally have two campaigns. So one campaign in the US for desktop and one campaign in the US for mobile and tablet. At the end of the day, you have two campaigns and you need at least $80 a day for each campaign that you will get us some data. Normally, I recommend a little bit more money, especially in the beginning, but that's the minimum amount you need. So you need at least $160 a day, which is the absolute minimum to gather data when you run the setup, which I mentioned before. And unfortunately, in the beginning, the CPA is very high. So for example, when your CPA goal is $25, and sorry for my bad writing, when your CPA goal is $25, then it could be, then it's in the beginning somewhere at $75. But you will see after we are gathering enough data and from week to week that the CPA went down. So for example, this is week 1, week 2, week 3, and so on and so forth. So the good news is, after we gather data, after we see what's working, what's not working, after the testing period, we come down very fast with the CPA and we will meet the target CPA very fast. And here you already see the difference because you have a very high CPA on the beginning, vice versa to Facebook. Facebook provides you a very low CPA on the beginning. But, and that's the same difference, when you are scaling up Facebook, a CPA went up. And here's the good news. When you have a good CPA basis, so for example, you have a good CPA basis, these are the costs, and here's the CPA, and you want to scale now, then the CPA stays almost the same. And that's the very good news here when native makes sense. So the whole process normally needs a little bit of time, unfortunately. For example, when you hire us as an agency, when you hire Purple Black, we need 3 months to test everything out before we can scale your campaign profitably. And here just a quick side note. So when Q4 is for you relevant, then you have to start now to take action because due to time fact, we need the time to test it now on the summer to check out the advertorials, the approaches that we can scale up profitably in Q4. So when Q4 is relevant for you, you have to take action now with native advertising. But back to the topic. So for example, when you hire us, we need 3 months until we can scale up your campaign profitably. And what we're doing in these 3 months, so we are testing everything against each other. We are testing different editorials, different approaches, and something like that. The good news is when you spend a little bit more, we need less time. But in the normal case, we need maximum 3 months. Sometimes we get data very fast, so that we just need 8 weeks or something like that. So let's come to the media cost, and that's a very crucial point because many people think, okay, native sounds great, and when I see native is working, then I can spend more. But on the beginning, I just want to spend $500 to see if it is working or not. And if you just have $500 or $1,000, please don't start with native advertising. Then it's the wrong traffic source for you yet. Because due to the fact that we need to test a lot, you need more money, especially in the beginning. So that's not a case like on Facebook that you can try it with $500 playing money, with some monopoly money, and check out if it is working. And when it's working, you can reinvest the money. So you need to bring in the beginning money to start with you. It's not possible to just start with $500, $1,000 to start with native advertising. But how much money you need for real now? So just media budget. Let's scale it down. So we have 3 months, month 1, month 2, month 3. And in these 3 months, you normally have a good data. So that means it's not completely unprofitable, but we need this money, we need this time to test. So we cannot scale it to the moon, for example, after 3 weeks, also when it's already profitable, because we need to gather more data. So when this is the testing period, you need here approximately 10K per month, 10K per month, and here again 10K per month. So you need in general in the first 3 months something between 8 and 10K per month. And important to understand is that maybe month 1 is not profitable, but in the normal case month 2 is already break even, and in month 3 we are profitable to scale everything up profitably, of course. And also when we are already profitable, for example, in the first month, we normally cannot scale it up directly because we have to get a little bit more data. But on some projects, we have already scaled it up profitably to a high amount of daily budget in the second month. So therefore, you see, you don't need always 3 months, but in worst case, we need up to 3 months to test everything out. And as mentioned in the beginning, it's not possible to just start with a few $100 on native. You need more money. And the good news is it's not completely lost, but you have to take care that you have the cash flow, the liquidity, which you can or which you're able to invest in native advertising. Also important to know is that I don't recommend you to start native advertising by your own. Not just because I have a native advertising agency, no, but believe me, I care about you. Therefore, please do not start by yourself with native advertising. Native ads in general are very complicated, especially when you're already familiar with social ads. So when you try to start with native, I can guarantee you, you will lose money, and you will lose more money than hiring an agency like we are. Just to give you a quick information what native advertising is and what to take care about. You not just have to take apart Taboola, Outbrain, and every traffic source you start with. No, you also need legit copywriting for the editorials. You have to know how they look like. You have to know everything about whitelists, blacklists, about bot traffic, about the technical stuff, about how the funnel is working, what's not working, which type of images are working, and so on and so forth. So it's not just the technical part, but it's also the experience which you need here to not lose money on native. And maybe you say, hey man, I don't believe you, I want to start by my own. I can guarantee you in a few weeks you will come back to me and say, hey, you're right, I've started by my own and I lose money. So I don't recommend you to start it by your own. When you think, hey, native advertising could be a good fit for me, then I would invite you to schedule a call with some of our reps. Just go to purple-black.com and save a free consultation call. And in this consultation call, we will check out if native ads work for you or not and give you a little bit more expectation about pricing and so on. So if you think native ads could be a good fit for you, check out purple-black.com and schedule your free call. Enough advertising, let's come to a conclusion. So native ads are working completely different than, for example, social ads. So on social ads, you have a very low CPA on the beginning, but when you try to scale up, you see the CPA went up and sometimes, unfortunately, it went unprofitable. On native ads, you have to invest a lot of money before you begin, for example, in setups and in the first month. But the good news is when you find a good fit when you find a good market fit, good approach, good audience, and so on, you can scale it up very fast profitably. We in our agency, Purple Black, need up to 3 months to test it out, everything, until we can scale it up profitably. By the way, if Q4 is important for you, you have to take care action now in summer and not just in November or October, because then it could be too late. For media budget, you need approximately 8 to 10K. Of course, it's not lost, the money is not away. You will receive conversions for that, but they might be not very, very positive in the first month. But normally in the second month, we already break even, and in the third month, we are already profitable. Just to give you a quick example, what's the normal way? So if you just have, I don't know, a few $100 or just 1 or 2K, I don't recommend you to start with native ads because you need more money to start with, and there is no way to try it cheaper because you will not get the data. So when you don't have the money yet, don't start with it, because when you start it just with a few $100, I can guarantee you it will not work, because you can't afford to gather all the data which you need to make the campaign profitable. I hope you liked that video, and I could give you today a little bit more insights about the pricing with native advertising, especially for traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini, and all other native ad traffic sources. When you liked that video, I would appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, and when you subscribe to my channel to get notified when I upload a new video here on YouTube about native advertising. Have a good one. See you next time.